The clatter of breaking dishes echoed through Romano's Italian restaurant like a gunshot, silencing every conversation. All eyes turned to see Maria Rodriguez frozen in the center of the dining room, her weathered hands trembling as marinara sauce pooled around shattered ceramic at her feet. She had worked at this family restaurant for 17 years, through recessions, personal tragedies, and countless double shifts, but in this moment, watching her boss Mr. Romano's face turn crimson with rage, she knew her time had finally run out. "That's it, Maria. You're done. Finished." Mr. Romano's voice boomed across the restaurant, his Italian accent thickening with anger. How many times must you embarrass me in front of my customers?" Maria's eyes filled with tears as she bent down to pick up the pieces, her arthritic fingers fumbling with the sharp fragments. At 53, jobs didn't come easy anymore. This wasn't just employment, it was her lifeline, the only thing standing between her and losing the small apartment where she lived with her elderly mother and 10-year-old grandson, Tommy. "Please, Mr. Romano," Maria whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm so sorry. I'll pay for the dishes. Please, I need this job." But Mr. Romano was beyond hearing. His restaurant had been struggling lately, and his frustration had been building for months. In his mind, Maria had become the perfect scapegoat, too slow, too old, too prone to mistakes. "Out. Get your things and get out. I should have replaced you years ago." The other diners shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some staring at their plates, others openly watching the humiliating scene unfold. Maria's coworker, young Jessica, started to step forward but stopped, afraid of losing her own job. The kitchen staff peered through the service window, their faces etched with sympathy but saying nothing. What none of them knew was the real reason behind Maria's mistake. That morning, Tommy had woken up with a fever of 103 degrees. Maria had no one else to call, no money for a babysitter, and her mother's dementia had worsened to the point where she couldn't be left alone with the boy. Maria had given Tommy medicine, settled him on the couch, and rushed to work because she couldn't afford to lose even one day's wages. Throughout her shift, her phone had buzzed repeatedly in her apron, messages from her frightened mother saying Tommy was crying and asking for her. Maria's mind had been somewhere else entirely when she picked up that tray. As Maria untied her apron with shaking hands, a small voice cut through the tension. "Wait." Everyone turned to see a little girl, no more than 7 years old, standing up from booth 12. She had curly brown hair and wore a pink dress with small yellow flowers. Her parents tried to pull her back down, but she wriggled free and walked straight toward Maria. "That lady is nice," the little girl announced, her child's voice carrying unexpected authority. "She's the best waitress here." Mr. Romano scoffed. "Sweetheart, go back to your parents. This doesn't concern you." But the little girl, whose name was Sophie, wasn't finished. She looked up at Mr. Romano with the kind of pure, unflinching honesty that only children possess. "My daddy lost his job last month. He cried at night when he thought I was sleeping. Mommy cried too. We had to move to a smaller house, and I had to leave my school and all my friends." Sophie's father stood up then, his face flushed with embarrassment and something else, the familiar shame of financial struggle. "Sophie, honey, come back here." But Sophie continued, turning to Maria. "You gave me extra cookies every time we came here. You always remembered that I don't like tomatoes on my pasta. Last time, when I spilled my juice, you told me it was okay and that you spill things all the time too. You made me feel better." Maria knelt down, tears now streaming freely down her face, and took Sophie's small hand in hers. Sophie looked back at Mr. Romano. "If you fire her, she might cry at night too. She might lose her house. Is that what you want?" The restaurant had fallen completely silent. Even the soft background music seemed to have stopped. Mr. Romano opened his mouth, then closed it again. He had been so consumed by his own stress, his own problems, his own financial worries, that he had forgotten the human being standing in front of him. He had forgotten that Maria had mourned with him when his wife passed away 3 years ago, that she had worked every Christmas Eve so his younger employees could spend time with their families, that she had once used her own tip money to pay for an elderly customer's meal when their credit card was declined. Mr. Romano's voice cracked. He looked around at his restaurant full of watching faces, faces that had witnessed his cruelty, his lack of compassion. He saw his own reflection in the window and barely recognized the hard, angry man staring back. "I lost my way," he said softly, more to himself than anyone else. He walked toward Maria, and she instinctively stepped back, still expecting to be escorted out. But instead, Mr. Romano did something he hadn't done in years. He let his guard down completely. His eyes filled with tears as he placed a gentle hand on Maria's shoulder. "Maria, I am so sorry. I have been a fool. A cruel fool." His Italian accent softened, his words heavy with emotion. "You are not fired. Please, forgive an old man who forgot what matters most." He turned to address the entire restaurant, his voice growing stronger. "This woman, Maria Rodriguez, is the heart of this restaurant. For 17 years, she has served not just food, but kindness. While I worried only about profits and perfection, she remembered that behind every table sits a human being with their own struggles, their own stories." Maria stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. Mr. Romano continued, "We all carry invisible burdens. We all struggle. We all make mistakes. And we all deserve grace." He looked at Sophie and knelt down to her level. "Thank you, little one. You taught me something today that I should have never forgotten. You reminded me what my own father told me when he opened this restaurant 50 years ago, that we don't just serve food, we serve humanity." Sophie smiled, and suddenly her father was there, his own eyes wet with tears. "Thank you," he said to Mr. Romano. "Thank you for hearing her. And for what it's worth, we've been coming here for 3 years, and Maria is the reason we keep coming back. Not just the food, though it's wonderful, but because she makes everyone feel like family." Other diners began to nod and murmur in agreement. An elderly couple from booth 7 stood up and started clapping. Then another person joined, and another, until the entire restaurant erupted in applause. Not polite, obligatory applause, but genuine, heartfelt recognition of what they had just witnessed. Maria finally broke down completely, covering her face with her apron as 17 years of exhaustion, worry, and sacrifice poured out of her. Jessica rushed over and hugged her tightly. Even the stoic line cooks emerged from the kitchen to pat her shoulder and offer words of support in broken English and Spanish. Mr. Romano raised his hands for silence. "Maria, please, take the rest of the day off. Paid. Go home to your family. And when you return tomorrow, we will talk about reducing your hours so you can spend more time with your grandson, with no reduction in pay. This restaurant has taken too much from you. It's time I gave something back." As Maria gathered her things, this time not in shame but in stunned gratitude, Sophie tugged on her sleeve one more time. "Can you still give me extra cookies when I come back?" Maria laughed through her tears, a sound of pure joy, and scooped Sophie into a tight hug. "For you, sweet girl, all the cookies you want. Forever." That evening, as Maria sat in her small apartment with Tommy's head resting in her lap, his fever finally broken, she thought about the strange, beautiful turn her day had taken. She thought about Sophie's courage, Mr. Romano's transformation, and the power of simple human compassion. Sometimes, she realized, it takes the innocent wisdom of a child to remind us all of what truly matters. Not perfection, not profit, but the simple, profound act of seeing each other's humanity and choosing kindness over judgment, grace over condemnation. In a world that often feels harsh and unforgiving, Maria had learned that redemption can come from the most unexpected places, sometimes in the form of a 7-year-old girl in a pink dress, brave enough to speak up for what's right. And that lesson would stay with everyone in Romano's Italian restaurant forever.